Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's explainer, where we are literally cracking the code on Australian business structures. Look, whether you're kicking off a weekend side hustle or building the next massive enterprise, the structure you choose right at the start, it's the absolute foundation of your entire business.
Which brings us to a huge, high-stakes question. Are your personal savings on the line? I mean, it's something you really need to think about. Your structure doesn't just dictate your tax bill and setup costs. It absolutely determines how much of your own personal wealth is at risk if things suddenly go south. So to really understand your options here, we first need to look at the most fundamental divide in Australian business law. It's basically a fork in the road. On one side, you literally are the business. You carry every ounce of financial and legal risk yourself. But on the other side, the business exists totally separate from you. It acts like a legal shield.
Let's start on that first side of the divide, the sole trader. It's by far the simplest and cheapest way to get set up. You just use your own personal tax file number, and you've got total, undisputed control. Sounds great, right? Well, yes, but here's the catch. You and the business are legally one and the same, meaning 100% of the liability falls directly on your shoulders.
Okay, next up we have a partnership. Obviously, teaming up means you now get a separate tax file number, and hey, you get to share the profits, but you also share the risk. That massive personal liability catch we just talked about? Yeah, that absolutely still applies to each and every individual partner.
So you're probably wondering, how do we actually build that legal shield? Well, we scale up to a company, or a PTYLT. Now we're talking about a completely separate legal entity. It can actually own property, and yes, it can be sued. If things go incredibly wrong, the company wears the risk, which brilliantly protects your personal assets. Things like your house.
And beyond just asset protection, there's a massive financial reward here too. 25%. A small company pays a flat corporate tax rate of just 25%. Compare that to a top individual rate of up to 45 cents on the dollar for sole traders. It really gives higher income businesses significantly more control over their tax bill.
However, you don't get that shield for free. It definitely comes with some administrative complexity. You can't just open your doors and start trading. First, you've got to get an Australian company number from ASIC. Then, you use that ACN to apply for your ABN, and finally, you can register your business name. It's a whole process. Now, regardless of which structure you actually go with, you've got to keep your eye on this major anchor number, $75,000. If your annual turnover hits this mark, you are legally required to register for GST. With very few exceptions, hitting this revenue mark triggers some strict obligations, literally no matter how you're set up.
Finally, let's look at the absolute top tier of complexity, the trust. Here, you have a trustee who manages assets for beneficiaries. Now, trusts offer unparalleled asset protection and some incredible tax flexibility. But, as you might guess, they absolutely demand expert setup, and they come with some seriously steep administrative and running costs. Now, what's really interesting is when we bring it all together like this, a super clear pattern emerges. As you move from a basic sole trader up the ladder to a trust, sure, your setup costs and your admin burdens go way up. But in return, so does your legal protection and your tax flexibility. Basically, complexity and protection scale up right alongside each other.
Which is why getting this right from the very start is absolutely vital. The Australian Taxation Office makes it clear that changing your business structure later down the road is incredibly expensive. It triggers totally new costs and some wildly complex tax implications. So take a step back and look at your own big idea. When the stakes are literally this high, which structure will you trust to protect your future?